Hi, I'm Kelly. As a life coach, I've noticed that the work I do with people isn't about their relationships or their jobs. It isn't about their kids or even how to find a way to get all the laundry done. All the work we do together centers around finding the answer to one simple question. What does it mean to live a fulfilled life? Join me as I explore this question and more in conversation with others in the Fulfilling Life interviews with me, Kelly Dahl, as your host. Hello, it's Kelly on the Fulfilling Life, and I'm here today with Catherine Jest to talk with you all about fulfillment. Catherine, it is such a joy to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please start by sharing with everybody about yourself and all the work that you do in the world.
Okay. First of all, I just want to thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here, and I love what you're doing. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. And about me, let's see. I am a photographer, and some people are calling me a spiritual teacher. I'm still rolling that around in my mouth. It's a little funny to say out loud, but I'm working on that. And I really am interested in using photography as a tool for transformation. And I like to teach that because it really has been something that has transformed my own life and continues to do so. And it has evolved over time. And so my work has changed, my creativity has changed, and my expression has changed as a result of looking through the lens and being more present. And when I'm frustrated, using the camera as a tool to shift my perception. So I do e-courses and I lead retreats and I have an online summit and I do have a interview series as well. And it's all about really letting go of whatever's limiting you from owning your greatness. And to me, when you own your greatness, there's more opportunities for freedom. And I'm really all about personal freedom. Freedom from that self-doubt and not enoughness and unsureness. Because I think there is certainty when you really know, when you sink down deep into yourself, there is a knowing. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that gets lost in the chaos of the mind. So it's really about that. It is about creativity, but it's also about using it as a tool to let go and really embrace who you really are.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up.
Just simple, really straightforward work, you know.
I have to say in one sentence, but
yeah, but that's the great, wonderful, deep, sink your teeth into kind of work that so many people love, and you and I definitely love. And your message of embracing your greatness is one that has really resonated with me and inspired me to ask you to be a part of this series, because it isn't an easy thing to do, and you just illustrated how it's not easy by people are telling you you're a spiritual teacher, but you're not embracing that greatness yet, are you?
Well, I think that's a label that I'm uncomfortable with more than anything, because I think that then it sets you up to be looked at like in a certain way when I am what I am. I think that like Miguel Ruiz does not call himself anything. Other people call him things, but he doesn't call himself a guru or anything. He's just sharing what he knows. And I think that other people need to label him whatever they need to label him to feel comfortable with that. Yeah. But I think I'm going through the same thing. Do I actually say I'm a spiritual teacher? I think that everybody gets what they get from whoever they're getting it from. Like, I get things from people who aren't necessarily teaching on purpose, but I'm learning from them, and I would consider them a teacher. So I think that's where that comes from. That's like, I'm not sure that is exactly the way I want to say who I am yet. You know? Yeah. That it's odd.
It's reconciling that need so many people have for the label and to name things, but yet how do you name yourself in the work that you're doing?
Right.
which is easier in a long introduction, right? So you
Right.
gave us a wonderful sense of the work that you do. And this idea of embracing your greatness and seeking your truth is so closely connected to this big question that I'm working on answering for myself and with others of what does it mean to live a fulfilled life? And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, Catherine, about this idea of fulfillment and seeking fulfillment. So what does living a fulfilled life look like for you?
It's a big question. And I had words come up while you were asking that question, and for me, the first thing that came up was permission, because I can have an image of perfection around what a fulfilled life looks like in like a magazine article, like glossy.
Yeah.
But the truth is, a fulfilled life, I think, is really being present for it. I think when we're not in acceptance of it, then we're suffering. At least that's been my experience, is that when I'm not accepting that my child's having a tantrum and I'd rather be doing something else, and I'm, just accepting the fact that I'm frustrated and I need to shift my perception in this moment or do something so that I'm no longer suffering. And that's fulfilling to me. It's fulfilling to me to have that shift happen. It's those little tiny moments of waking up over and over and over and over and over again. To remember sometimes it's the same lesson over and over, but I feel like it's just a practice. There's no I've arrived. I no longer have any sort of frustration in my life. I would think that, I know that there are some teachers, like Miguel Ruiz, I'm calling him a teacher, that he has feelings about things and he just lets himself feel them and then moves on. And he doesn't beat himself up for it. And I think that's really the key.
Yeah.
So when I say permission, it really is about just being really where you are. And even if that's pissy, that really accepting yourself in that moment is really more fulfilling than trying to be something that you're not. And so, I'm going through it all the time. I'm a mom. I'm a full-time entrepreneur, a full-time mom, and I'm Max's aide at preschool, full-time, like 2 days a week. And so my attention goes to that Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I divorce myself from my business or whatever's on my list because he needs me. And sometimes I have a blog post that there are things, we were talking before we started recording this call about not doing things last minute, and I'm still learning how to not do things last minute and get more help than I think I need and schedule things out so that I feel freer. Mm-hmm. The freer that I feel in my schedule, the more fulfilled I feel. And that's just me personally. I just have a huge need for personal freedom, and that usually shows itself in how scheduled I am or not scheduled, and how allowing I am for myself to be exactly where I'm at. I think that's a long answer, but I think that's really it for me.
And it's all connected too. And when you first said that idea of permission and being with whatever the moment is giving you, whether it's being pissy or feeling elated, it gave me a feeling of kind of sinking down into it, and I felt my body release with that thought of giving yourself permission to be in that moment. But with the scheduling piece too, and being 100% present for Max at preschool on Tuesdays and Thursdays means not being present for, are people commenting on your blog post or asking you questions or needing something from you related to your business. It's giving you yourself permission to be in that role.
Right.
And as moms and as mother business owners and individuals and women and all these hats we wear, to give yourself permission to sink into what the moment is bringing you is a challenge. But it's so key too to the fulfillment. So you've already mentioned some of the obstacles that get in your way in terms of balancing these roles. What are some of the things that you do to help yourself with that balance or those obstacles that come in your way of the permission and the moving towards fulfillment?
Well, I think when I hear the word balance, I get a little like, ugh, because I think we can get stuck in trying to achieve balance. And I don't know that it's always reachable from day to day. And I try to take it day to day instead of, my life has balance. But because I don't know how Max is going to feel today,
Right.
or I'm going to feel today. And so I have to check in and see what's possible, what's really true. And if things aren't going to be, if I don't have as much energy because I was up late at night with Max, or I was working really late on a project, I need to like call people and reschedule things, because I'm not doing them any favors if I'm not going to be fully present. And I know that's maybe counter for what a professional businesswoman should do, like show up. If you say you're gonna, I think there are instances where you do need to still show up if you say you're going to. But I also think that I give myself an opportunity to just ask the question if it is reschedulable, because I do need more self-care than I thought I did. Not that I would say it in that way necessarily, but
Right.
but just checking in with myself and seeing what's really possible. And sometimes I do overbook myself, and I recognize it, and then start asking to move things around, because I'm still figuring it out. I don't know what it's like to raise a child. I've never raised now he's 4. I've never had a 4-year-old. So every year is new. Every day is
Right.
different. And my business is also evolving. And so I'm adding new programs and things, and it's different every time. So balance to me, and what I do about it is really check in with myself, and then change whatever I can change. And what I'm noticing is I need a lot more space. And I also give myself, I love taking classes. Taking classes to me is like a refresher when I'm looking outside to get information in. So I'm a seeker, I'm curious, I'm always looking for teachers, and whether it's in photography or spirituality or learning a new type of creative flow. I love printmaking and painting, and so I'm always looking, I'm on the lookout. So I think learning for me is a way for me to, decompress a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Me, and also community. I can't say enough things about really checking in with my peeps. And the ones that really get what it means to be a business owner, that means a lot to me, to just say it out loud and them say it back, and then I can move on. And also kids that, parents that have kids with Down syndrome, that's really important for me to bounce things off of when I'm not totally sure what's next, and other people have already gone through the process. I don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And same with just parenting in general, like potty training. How the heck?
From one day to the next, that support is so huge, and it's so nice to hear you say with assurance that every day is different, and you have to be willing to accept that. And I think as parents, our kids throw that in our face so loudly. We experience that as individuals our entire life. We do wake up differently, but maybe, at least I can speak for myself. I didn't let myself listen to those daily changes that happened before I had kids. I don't think I thought, oh, I should just be able to flow and do these things and get over myself and all of that. And your kids wake up and they're going to just throw their shit in your face, and their day is going to be what it was, and it's going to change 20 times through the day too. So it's such a great lesson for me to learn as a parent, that I need to ask those questions. What does it need right now? What does this moment need? Who do I need to be for my kids, and who can I help them be for themselves and for me? And
yeah.
there's nothing that gets you're just confronted with it.
Yeah. And I don't always handle it well, and I just need to forgive myself, and not beat myself up for it over and over again, because there's no point. Then I'm not in the present, and I learn from it, what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and how much suffering I do because of that. Just recently, one of these days this week, I came into my office and I had the most peaceful day. I had nothing really planned, and I stayed offline a lot. I stayed off Facebook a lot more than usual, and I checked in with my friends, but it wasn't in a proving, striving, need to get forward kind of way. It was just a being in my life kind of way. And I practiced guitar. I'm learning how to play guitar, and I took some pictures that had nothing to do with anything, no projects I was working on. And I just really, I love that. That's
Yeah.
a good day for me.
Yeah.
And the next day, I went into the office and I have it set up the same, but my energy was different. And I started judging it. Like, I liked it better yesterday. How do I get that?
Right.
And I had to check in with myself. There was some anxiety. Like, I really could feel a tightening in my being, and I needed to check in with myself and find out. And there was fear about something happening in the future, but nothing was really different today. So I had to start over and be like, okay, if I want my day to look like that, I need to do certain things for myself, light those candles, burn the incense, and check in with what needs to be addressed, because that can carry its own energy the whole day if I'm not saying, what do you need?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, and I feel like my kids have taught me to do that, not only for them, but for myself as well. And it affects so much, right? Like for me, like when I'm doing that for myself, my kids are in a different space too.
Yeah.
And, we can coexist in not a better way necessarily, but a way that is coexisting and communicating with each other on a different level.
Absolutely. Yeah, I find that if I'm in inner turmoil, somehow Max knows it, and he raises his his vocals get turned up or something. But when I'm more peaceful, like his vocalizations of discontent or whatever don't actually have the same charge.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But more often than not, when I'm calm, he also feels that energy too.
Yeah.
It's interesting how we really are feeling each other's energy without saying a word.
Right. So. Yeah, it's really fascinating. And so you've mentioned a lot through our conversation so far, this idea of listening closely to what's going on, and listening to yourself, and also tuning in to Max and what he needs. And what are some of the things that help you listen in that way?
Honestly, it's just checking in with my gut. I can feel it. You can feel that tension. Mm-hmm. But I also do use photography to shift my perception when I do feel that anxiety. And I'll give myself a timeout, and I'll grab my iPhone and I'll step outside and start looking outside myself for clues from the universe. Because I feel like if I'm just in that headspace of trying to figure things out, and I'm uncomfortable, and I'm trying to prove or strive or push or whatever that is, I'm not getting anywhere except listening to my thoughts. It's usually on repeat. And so sometimes people will say meditation is the key to quieting the mind, or when there's chaos to shift and sit for 5 minutes. But for me, it's looking through the lens or looking through my iPhone that doesn't really have an eyepiece necessarily, but it does the same thing for me, where I'm looking at how the light is falling on the branches outside, and I remember that my inner turmoil only exists because I'm feeding it. And that's what is hooking my attention right now. I'm giving it all of my attention, and it's growing. Mm-hmm. So whatever I put my attention on gets bigger. So if I shift and notice, just that little moment of clarity, it's like oh, right, I'm doing it again. Right. And it brings me back to the fact that there are bigger energies at play besides me trying to work it out all the time.
Right.
And when I let go and allow myself to see what's happening outside myself, I do relax, I do sink in, and I do trust more. And I realize that me running the show doesn't always work as, if I say personal freedom is what I'm all about and personal transformation, but if I'm running the show, there's no room for personal anything. Because I'm busy pulling all the strings. So photography really has helped me to just remember that I'm not the only one that has to make decisions here, and that I don't need to know the answer all the time, and that I don't have to be the first to come up with an idea before anybody else. Like all of that business stuff and parenting, doing everything perfectly, like all of that expectation and stuff that's coming in from the outside as a parent or wherever it's coming from, is secondary to really listening to yourself, but also being open. So I can't say enough about photography, and even not just about looking outside for clues, but I've also done projects around what I'm feeling. to sort of excavate or be like an archaeologist and look for, I'm feeling a certain way in this relationship. What does that look like? What objects could express that feeling? Like an empty bowl is like, I'm not feeling like I'm getting fulfillment from this relationship. Why? What am I not doing? And putting myself in an image, like a self-portrait with these objects, and creating a visual language. I've found that to be really powerful for me when I don't have the words, and I don't necessarily feel comfortable working it out with somebody else. It's still my own process that needs to be filtered through and digest or looked at, and that's really helped. Like looking for ways to visually convey what's going on so that I can better understand it. You know, it's a form of journal writing, but it's just visual.
Right.
So both of those tools have really helped me a lot. I mean, and you know, the usuals of just getting an outside perspective if I'm spinning out, and I think that also comes handy with the photography as well. When I've taken those pictures and I can look back at them, I can see things that I couldn't have seen otherwise.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you know, I love so much of what you're saying about using photography in that way, and the way that it can narrow your focus in a really powerful way to help you move. And I'm remembering after my daughter was born, I went through a really tough time just with life stuff and hormonal stuff, and you could put all sorts of labels on it, and what you label it doesn't matter, right? But when she was older, I remember having a really profound reaction to looking at some pictures of her as a baby, and she was very smiley. And I had sat in front of my computer, you know, and recorded the two of us, and I could see the way that she was looking at me, and I had missed it in the moment because of all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that lens, that focus, to be that. It allowed me to see something that was there that I wasn't able to feel, or to see. You know, we're waiting desperately for spring right now, and I can still see the sun through my iPhone when I take a picture of my kids.
Yeah.
Even though we don't totally feel it yet.
Yeah.
So just to see different pieces that are there, I love that. So thank you.
You bring up a really, really. I have goosebumps when you're sharing that, because I have had that similar experience where I'm not really in the room. And I've talked a lot about my nap time series, but it was exactly that I was going through, where I was a new mom and my son did not want to nap at nap time, and all I wanted to do was have me time, and I got really frustrated, and I wasn't present. I was in my mind thinking of all the things I'd rather do, and I would rock him and read to him, and he didn't get the memo.
This is nap time. You're supposed to sleep, and I can let go.
And it's partly, I think, because he could probably feel the energy coming from me, that that anxiety I was feeling to leave.
Right.
And I decided to use the camera because I knew that nap time still needed to happen, and that I was suffering as a result of what I was thinking. And I was trying every which way to, like, asking the mothers before me the energy of all the stuff I was trying. It wasn't working because I just wanted what I wanted, and I wanted it now, like Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka. So I grabbed the iPhone and I brought it to bed with us, and I would rock him to sleep, and it would take however it took, and I would close my eyes and take a picture next to him of however he ended up asleep next to me. And when I looked at the picture, it was the same kind of like, oh, I'm totally missing this whole amazing spiritual connection I have with my son, and how much he loves me, and it woke me up. And so it started this project that was 2.5 years, almost 3 years long, of documenting us at nap time. And it was about looking for, like, allowing him to fall asleep whenever I became more curious about it. Like, is he going to, sometimes he would fall asleep and his foot would be pressed up against my face, or he'd be snuggling, or he'd be across the bed, or I was curious. And it kept me in the room. And then I would take the picture and see, oh, today he fell asleep like this, and the next day he fell asleep like that, and the next day. And so I have all of these pictures that document this amazing time that actually no longer exists because he stopped napping.
Right.
And what a gift that I have a documentation, like you just said, about going back and looking at these photos that you might not have been present for.
Yeah.
But now you have a documentation of that it really existed, that time was happening, and you were exactly where you needed to be. And now you're in a different place.
Yeah.
And I feel like I went through, like when I look at some of the pictures, I know that all I did was take the picture and then I left, you know? Like I can't wait to take this picture so I can go have my lunch.
Right.
So, moment of awareness where I did see the connection between us. And sometimes I was really present and stayed and napped with him. And so it's all different. It's not like all of a sudden I started this series and I had arrived with being aware and fully present all the time, but
right.
It became a tool for, and now I did create a course around that where people can sign up and I give them daily emails and prompts and lessons about photography, and they pick one thing in their day that maybe frustrates them or that they're not noticing or something that's magical, like even just the breakfast table every morning or their coffee. Somebody did a coffee series for a month of their coffee mug and what was happening at breakfast time, and now it's turned into like months and months of this coffee series, and we both are startled every time she takes a picture because it's not your average like cup in the middle of the frame. I mean, right. You see where it's like off to the side or down, you know. She really started looking at composition and how the light was falling on it, and that's really the key, is really noticing how the light is falling on it and the shapes and the textures and the energy, and all of that is present. And so it gives us an opportunity to practice that and hopefully make it a habit and expand it to everything.
Right. You know, it's learning how to frame things to evoke what you're experiencing. You know, I think about it like you think about it with what you put on. You know, you want to put on clothes that make you feel the way you're feeling that day. But to frame a picture to capture what is happening in that moment, which is something we can do throughout our day. How do I want to frame this? With that, going back to that question of what do I need right now? What does Max need? What do my kids need? What does my husband need? What does my business need? And really asking that so that the frame can be set up the way it needs to be.
Yeah, it's like a reframing. You were saying framing. I'm like, yeah, it's a reframe.
Yeah.
You know, yesterday my son was in a horrible mood. I think because we have somebody that helps watch Max so I can work a couple hours, and she was leaving, and we always go through this ritual where he goes to the door and opens it and gives her a hug and says goodbye, and I always want that closure to happen, and he just wasn't interested, and so he was whining, and I pulled out the iPhone and I made it so he could see himself, and his mood changed. So, and I started taking pictures, and he wanted more. So it's interesting how it really can shift your perception. It shifted my son's perception of what was happening in a split second. I was able to, you know, give him an opportunity to shift his attention. It's kind of wild.
Yeah. It's really just wonderful. I feel like I can't say how I love that framing and reframing and capturing it and noticing and forcing the noticing and then absorbing the noticing is all a part of it.
Yeah, it really is.
Catherine, this has been such a treat to talk with you about all of this and all under the branches of fulfillment. You know, it's not answering that question directly, but it's all directly related to that question of what it means to live a fulfilled life. So I thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your tools and your wisdom with us today.
Thank you.
Can you tell everybody again where they can find you online?
Sure. I'm at catherinejust.com, and everything is listed there, all the courses and retreats, etc. So come on by. I'd love to see you. Wonderful.
And the photography series is something that I've enjoyed connecting with you, and I love your waking moments too. Those joyful smiles in the morning are a wonderful thing to track. and the NAP series too. So I've really enjoyed getting to know you through your photography and through your work. And I encourage everybody to reframe and frame and learn from your work about themselves.
Thanks so much. It was really great talking with you. I love having conversations about how to do this thing called life, and how to really show up for it. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.